G'day, Dylan O'Donnell here. No. Hi there, it's Chris back from DIY Astro. Today we are looking at the Celestron FirstScope 76, which is a mini tabletop Dobsonian telescope designed for someone starting out in astronomy. So it comes in quite a nice decorative box, and it's great to see that there's nothing unrealistic on the box. Everything you see on the box is something you can see with the actual telescope. A peek at the mirror. It's tiny. Don't know if you can see that. There's no centre dot for collimation, but then again, the primary mirror is factory collimated. There's no adjustment screws for collimating the primary mirror, so I'll be doing a star test to make sure it's collimated from the factory. There are several adjustment screws on the secondary mirror, so you can collimate it from the secondary mirror, so that's fine. It's a very dinky little mirror in there. It's spherical, not parabolic. I guess it's bit too much to ask for a parabolized mirror at this price point, which is £69 or $69. It doesn't come with a finder scope, but it's got the screws for one to add one, and you can get an accessory kit for this telescope, which is £19, which includes 2 eyepieces, which are Huygens, which are really super cheap, so probably not worth it for the eyepieces, but you do get a 24mm with 5 times magnification finder scope you can attach to this, and you get a moon filter as well, so if the moon's looking a bit too bright, you can screw the moon filter onto the bottom of the eyepiece before you pop it in the focuser. Just takes a bit of the brightness away, but to be honest, with an aperture of 76mm, I think that should be fine really. It's only with larger apertures where you're pulling in a lot of light where the moon can sometimes blind you a little bit, so I'll just test it without the moon filter first and see how you get on. So the first thing to note is it's got a rack and pinion focuser, and that is 1.25 inch, which is the standard eyepiece size nowadays. So you can use quite a lot of different eyepieces in this telescope, and I would recommend eventually upgrading to slightly better eyepieces to get the most out of it. Let's see what's in this accessory box here. Get a cleaning cloth for the lenses. Don't use that on the primary mirror though. You shouldn't really very often at all need to clean a primary mirror. My father-in-law's had a Newtonian telescope for 30 years and I don't think he's ever cleaned the primary mirror. So don't worry if you get little bits of dust and dirt on the primary mirror. It will still perform really well. It's just not worth the risk of cleaning it and scratching it and taking the coatings off just to remove a tiny bit of debris that's not going to affect the image. So this cloth, just for the eyepieces, not the optics of the telescope, I'd recommend. Now let's have a look at these eyepieces. So these are Huygens as well, so I guess it goes with the price of this at £69 that you're not going to get fantastic eyepieces. These are a super basic type of eyepiece. This 20mm will give you 15 times magnification, so very low powers for scanning like the Milky Way and open clusters, things like that really. You work out the magnification by dividing the focal length of the telescope. In this case it's 300mm with the number on the eyepiece, which is the focal length of the eyepiece. So 300 divided by 20 is 15. So let's have a look at the other one and see what that gives you. SR4, what's that? I'm gonna have to look though. I think it might be, is it Ramsden? I'll have a look and I'll put it above what SR stands for, but I think it might be Ramsden. So a different optical design to the Huygens, but it's a 4mm and it's a very small eye lens, so you're going to have to get your eye right in there to see the field of view when using this one. But this one will give you 75 times magnification. So again, 300mm focal length divided by the 4 gives you 75 times magnification. If you've never used a telescope before, I'll just quickly run over how this works. This is the most simple design ever. Literally you move it up, down, left and right, and it was designed by a guy called John Dobson, and the type of telescope is named after him. It's called the Dobsonian telescope, and you can move it up and down on the altitude, and then left and right, because the base swivels at the bottom. There's a screw in the middle and you can just swivel it, and that's called azimuth. And these mounts are also called out azimuth mounts. Before I'm waving this around in daylight, the sun's over there in the west. I'm just going to make sure, so it's up there. Never point your telescope at the sun without the correct filter on it. So I'm making sure I'm going to point it in the opposite direction to the sun. To use the telescope, we'll take the dust caps off. So this one's from the front of the telescope, that one's from the focuser. Take your cap off your eyepiece, undo the little thumb screws, and then you can pop it in there. You've got this rack and pinion focuser, and you look through the eyepiece and use the rack and pinion focuser in and out until you reach focus. The image will be upside down because the light's reflected off a mirror, so it's not really a daytime telescope, it is for astronomy. So I'm going to pop this on the scales at some point, so I will take this inside and do a bit of measuring and weighing just to show you how much it weighs. But I don't know if you can see this. There's a list of 10 objects, including Tycho, Sea of Tranquility, Sea of Crisis, Copernicus, Crater, Sea of Serenity, Plato, Sinus Iridium. These well-known landmarks on the moon that are depicted by number on the map on the moon on the actual telescope optical tube itself. Okay, let's pop it on the scales and see how much this weighs. So I'm getting just over £3, which is 1.64 kilograms rounded up. So very light, I'm sure you'll agree. And measurement wise, we are, for the optical tube, it is just over 10 inches, which is about 26.5 centimetres. The height from the ground of the whole thing for storing away is just shy of 14 inches or about 35 centimetres. The width of the base is 8 inches or 20 centimetres. So I'm sure you'll agree it'll be quite easy to store this even just on a shelf. It's quite decorative. I'm going to put mine up on a shelf to display and the kids will be able to use it and everything. I'm looking forward to playing around with the telescope with the kids. As luck would have it, it's a beautiful night, and even though I filmed earlier an unboxing and an overview of the FirstScope 76, I think it would be a good idea to make use of that lovely crescent waxing moon we've got up there. So especially as it's a Robert Reeves Lunar Edition telescope, signature edition telescope, I think it's quite fitting. Let's have a quick look at the moon first of all with the Huygens 20mm, which is going to give us 15 times magnification. Now I'm going to switch the camera I'm filming on to infrared now. Okay, first light we go. See how easy it is to find the moon without a finder scope. Just going to sight up the moon along the tube, and I've got it. So let's just get a bit of focus and see what we've got. I'm also going to do a star test to make sure the coloration's okay. This is the 20mm Huygens eyepiece, giving 15 times magnification. The image scale is quite small, the moon's occupying probably a quarter of the width of the field of view. There is some blue fringing around the moon, which as I'm using a reflector, it's got to be coming from the Huygens eyepiece, so I'll be interested to see what a better eyepiece does for this telescope. I'm just going to have a quick look with the 4mm, given 75 times magnification. It's got a tiny eye lens on this one. Let's see what it's like. So I can see the full field of view of the eyepiece when I put my eye very close to it. That's actually pretty cool, because now I've got the moon occupying almost perfectly full field of view of the eyepiece. There's just a bit of room for framing all the way around it, and I can see the craters much more clearly with this, given 75 times magnification. Still a little bit of fringing, certainly much better than the telescope I got for my 7th Christmas. Like, I didn't get this kind of detail on the moon with that, and I think that was like a 60mm department store refractor on a very wobbly mount. The mount on this is very stable. The vibrations settle down immediately as soon as you move the telescope. You're not waiting 5-6 seconds for the oscillations to settle down before you can see anything. Yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile starter scope from what I'm seeing initially, but I think it can only be improved by using better eyepieces, so I think I'm going to grab my eyepiece case. Okay, I've gone and got the BST Star Guider, or Paradigm in the States. This is an 8mm, which is going to give something like 38 times with this telescope, so it's quite a bit heavier than the other eyepieces, so it'll be interesting to see how well this tiny miniature telescope handles the weight of this. It's actually quite difficult to grip the 4mm, that's a good point actually. Because there's a chamfer or a volcano top on the 4mm SR eyepiece, it's actually quite difficult to grip it and get it out. I'm actually going to have to like pick the telescope up and tip it out. Hello? That's incredible. I'd say that was a slight design oversight. That's so difficult to get out. Wow. That's actually caught me by surprise on camera. So, yeah, these are the kind of important details you kind of need to know. It's not like I've got bad dexterity or anything. If it just had a bit of rubber around the top, something that was not very smooth, slippy plastic, I'd probably stand some more of a chance. Let me try putting the dust cover over it and seeing if I can grip it. Come on. I'd probably not use the 4mm eyepiece. Don't think it's a good idea. So yeah, first upgrade is the 4mm eyepiece, definitely. Oh, come on. Yeah, got it. The plastic bit at the top is so shallow and it's tapered like a volcano top. I just couldn't grip it. I don't think I've ever come across that before, but obviously it's not a deal breaker or anything. Just have to be a bit careful when using that eyepiece. And these are kind of temporary eyepieces just to get you going. So it's not the end of the world or anything, but just interesting that they didn't kind of stumble across that when they were putting this through its paces before they released it. Now this BST Star Guider looks absolutely enormous in this tiny telescope. Let's have a look, see what the moon looks like. It's holding it, so fair play. See how it kind of manoeuvres with the heavier. It balances okay actually with the BST Star Guider. So you can use quite reasonable sized eyepieces with this, so that's a real good thing. Oh wow, yeah, that's so much sharper. Okay, definitely worth upgrading the eyepieces for this telescope. Definitely. There's a lot less colour fringing. I'd say the colour fringing's at least reduced by 50%. The craters on the moon look sharper. Yeah, that's actually a really nice view. I think next what I want to do with this little telescope is point it towards a bright star, defocus that star, and see what the star pattern looks like, that defocused star pattern. Because if you can see the shadow of the secondary mirror right in the middle of that shadow, so the star looks like a donut, then you know the collimation of the telescope's good. That means it's arrived well collimated. And as it's got a fixed primary mirror, that's quite important. Although, yeah, I've got provision to adjust the collimation via the secondary mirror on this telescope if needs be. But my experience of having very similar telescopes to this in the form of the Heritage 100p and the 150p is that they've arrived fairly well collimated. So fingers crossed the same goes for the FirstScope Celestron 76. I'm going to pop it right in the centre of the field of view. There's not going to be any field curvature or anything like that to skew the results of this. And now let's defocus it. I might need... Wow, yeah, that's pretty good, really good actually. Yeah, that is well collimated. I'm quite impressed. I will put a camera in the focuser and hopefully show you what I'm talking about. That looks very good. Ooh, I'll tell you what's not good though. The rings are much sharper one side of focus than the other side. So that's to do with being over or under corrected optics wise. So what are we? So that's past focus, the rings are very soft. Before focus, the rings are very sharp. So I need to remind myself whether that means it's under or over corrected, but it's either under or over corrected. I just don't know which, I'll have to just look that up. By going through focus and back out the other side, I can examine the shape of the defocused star and look at all the rings, and that tells me how well figured the optics are of the primary mirror. But we have got to bear in mind this is £69 or $69. So here we have the ZWO ASI 462MC dedicated astronomy camera, and we're going to pop it on the Celestron FirstScope and see if this thing can rock some imaging. The focus is actually really nice for this price point. If I can get it to reach focus, I think this might be a bit of fun. Yeah, I'm not going to get focus with this. Not at all. Going to need the mini version of the camera where you can push the sensor right down into the focuser. It'll work with that, I'm sure. It's just that this is the more traditional style ZWO camera. Okay, I think my next plan is to use the supplied 20mm eyepiece that gives 15 times, as I keep mentioning. This is what you'd use as a finder eyepiece to find your way around the sky, because it's going to give the biggest field of view. So I want to sort of see what it's like for anyone getting this telescope with the supplied eyepiece, and what kind of experience you'd have looking around the sky for the first time trying to find objects. One thing I've really got to praise this telescope for is the Dobsonian Mount. It is rock solid and really smooth. It's good fun just zooming around with it being so buttery smooth. I can certainly see a lot of faint stars. The field of view is it's not ever so big with the Huygens. It looks like it's about 35 or 40 degrees. I'm going to have to look at what an Huygens eyepiece gives you in terms of apparent field of view, but it feels quite narrow. But because it's such a low power at 15 times, it should give you a decent amount of sky to look at, to find things. So if I put a star in the centre, it's fairly sharp. I'll move it out a little bit towards the edge. About 50% towards the edge, we're getting quite a lot of light scattering off one side of the star. This is kind of what you'd expect for a very fast, heavily curved spherical mirror, but this is certainly very reasonable for a first telescope, especially the mount, because it doesn't matter how good your optics are, if you're on a very wobbly mount, like a lot of beginner telescopes are from stores and whatnot, then you're not going to see anything. It's rock solid, but the optics are kind of what you'd expect from a 76mm spherical mirror using the cheapest eyepieces available, which are Huygens. So definitely an eyepiece upgrade. Let me pop in the BST, which is definitely what a lot of people would upgrade to as their first eyepiece upgrade. And let me just see what difference it makes looking at star fields. Oh my word, seriously, putting a better eyepiece in this telescope absolutely transforms it. I kind of wish they'd just given you one kind of half-decent eyepiece instead of two really bad ones, because that is seriously so much better. Seriously so much better. Like looking at a star field in Cassiopeia, like just looking at the overall representation of the stars, it's much sharper out to the edge. So a lot of the aberrations I'm seeing are from that Huygens eyepiece and not from the optics of the telescope. So I kind of take that back a little bit. A lot of it is the eyepieces that I'm using. So bottom line, if you're getting this, seriously think about budgeting for an eyepiece upgrade to go with it, because it does make a world of difference. Strengths and weaknesses. The mount is amazing. It is buttery smooth on both the altitude and azimuth axis. It's a pleasure to use. It's rock solid. The optics are vastly improved with an eyepiece upgrade. They're actually pretty nice. Pretty nice for how fast the mirror is and for it not being parabolic. I mean, it is either over or under corrected, but it's a very fast spherical mirror, so I'm not really surprised by that. It's a very lightweight, compact. You'll be able to store this anywhere, so it might make a nice little quick travel scope if you're more advanced or a first step for a beginner. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap things up there and get in and start editing this video to get it uploaded so you guys can see it. I've got affiliate links in the description for First Light Optics. I'll pop this little bad boy in there, so if you fancy one, you can go through it, no extra cost to yourself, and I'll get a little kickback from that to help out with the channel expenses and whatnot. That'd be great. If not, no worries. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you fancy seeing any more content, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Give me a like if you fancy it as well. And until next time, tell those clouds to sod off and take it easy.